Greetings and welcome to From the Basement. In this video series, we're going to be taking a look at the Unreal Development Kit, or the UDK. The free version, at least non-commercially, for the Unreal Engine 3. It's been used to make quite a few popular games. You may be familiar with them: Mass Effect series, Gears of War, Batman Arkham City. So it's a fairly powerful engine. It's a lot of fun to work with. It's also very complicated to work with. Now, like my Neverwinter series, I am not going to be going over in extreme depth, covering every single button, every single option. I just will be covering the basics. What are the minimum skills that you need to create a basic, playable level so that you can start testing your designs? Now, to start off with this, let's go over where you can find some of the documentation, because since I am only covering the basics, you will definitely need to do some additional reading on this engine. To start off with, udn.epicgames.com 3 for the Unreal Engine 3. Webhome.html is where you can find this, where you can click on the link on the video. This is your starting point for the documentation. To call out a few specific pages on here, you will definitely want to read the Unreal Editor and Tools page. There's a lot of good basic starting information here. Off of that page, specifically, getting started with geometry mode. The geometry mode, which there will be a video dedicated specifically for it, is a very powerful tool, and it's a really good idea to have a solid grasp on how this tool works. If you are interested in having some more detailed video tutorials, the video tutorial page has lots of those. Specifically, I can recommend the 3D Buzz video tutorials. Now, those have been made on an older version. I am using the most recent version as of this recording, the July 2013, I believe it was July 2013 release of the UDK. But most of the information should be correct on those. There just might be some minor visual differences in how the editor looks. And finally, while these two pages aren't necessarily about using the editor itself, they're still really good pages to take a look at in terms of how to do level design. There's a discussion here on Epic Games design workflow, and this article right here on modular level design is also an extremely good read, especially if you are going to be the one constructing the static meshes and such that will be going into the level. And with documentation out of the way, let's go ahead and hop into the UDK itself to see what's going on. Now, you'll probably notice something right away with this video, that it looks like I've got part of the screen cut off. I am using dual monitors for this video. It's something that I have not done in the past, primarily because there is enough information on this editor that using a single monitor is really, really annoying. You will really want a dual monitor setup for working with the UDK. There's just too much information. It's a good idea to always have, well, you have to have this window open pretty much all the time. It's also a good idea to have this window, the content browser, open all the time, because you'll constantly be going back and forth between these. And if you have to constantly open and close this content browser window because you're in a single window mode or a single monitor mode, it gets aggravating after a while. So I will do my best. When I am in this mode, I'll have the camera, or when I'm working over here, I'll have the camera focused over here. And then when I'm working over here, I'll have the camera focused over here. All right, let's deal with the editor window first. We've got a couple of naming terminologies that I want to get straight. We have our menu bar. Anytime I refer to that, I'm referring to our pull-down menu friends up here. We have the toolbar. Whenever I just refer to the general toolbar, I am referring to these buttons up here. If I refer to the toolbox, I am referring to these buttons on the side here. And if I refer to a viewport toolbar, I am referring to these rows of buttons that are on the viewports. Now, these four areas right here, obviously, then are the viewports. So when I refer to these, when I refer to a viewport, I'm referring to one of these windows here. We have two primary types. We have the orthographic, which are these three with the grids that look all nice and flat and wiry. And then we have the perspective, which is this one down here that looks like a preview of the level. For the orthographics, we have side, front, and top views. And then the perspective, we can see, has a P for perspective. You will be using all four of these windows. You'll be using this window, the perspective window, to check your placement and the visual look of the editor or the level. And you'll be using your orthographic windows to check your precision placement of objects and items within the level. Now, you can maximize these windows if on the viewport toolbar you click this little maximize looking button. It does what you think it does. It maximizes that viewport, so you just have one viewport on the screen. And then you click on the minimize button to shrink it back down to normal. And it's not uncommon to bounce back and forth between these different view modes. So that's this window. Moving over now to the content browser. This is where you have, well, all of your content, your static meshes, your material, sound effects, all of those types of things are over here. Things that can be placed inside the level, your actor classes, your level list itself, scene information, layer information, any miscellaneous documentation that you want to have in there, which, there we go, there it's come up. It's got built-in documentation. Just took that one a moment to come up. So yeah, this is your content browser. Now, if this window happens to be closed, you can go over here to the toolbar. I'm sorry, not the toolbar. Getting my own words mixed up. The menu bar. Go to View, Browser Windows. Stop that. And any of these will open up the appropriate section on the content browser. So if your content browser window has gotten closed, you can just go to View, Browser Windows, Content Browser, or any one of those, and it will bring this window back up again. This is where you'll be selecting, like I said, your materials for applying onto objects, creating new materials, working with your static meshes, things like that. Now, for creating a level, sometimes, by the way, and I've not really figured out where the difference is here on this. Sometimes when you start up the UDK, you'll start up in a view with your perspective maximized. On my machine, I always start like this. If you happen to be one of my students at the college, then yeah, your UDK will always start up like this in the labs. I would always recommend starting off in this view right here for creating a level. I think it's just a little bit easier to deal with. And for learning purposes, we're not going to deal with this fancy skybox setup thing that they already have created for us here. So I'm going to go to File, New Level, and I'm going to choose a blank map, which gives us a nice void to work with. Now, how do we maneuver around in these viewports? Well, in the perspective view, if you press and hold the right mouse button, that will cause you to look around. And it can be a little bit disorienting without any markers, so I am just going to quickly add in a couple of meshes. Oops, and I think I moved that guy like way too far out. Get back here. Okay, then this I guess would be as good as any time to show how to get your brush back if you accidentally move it like way off into the distance. Up on your toolbar, you will have a little crosshairs, the transition mode. If you right click on that, you can bring up a translate window here, and I'm going to tell it to translate to 000 absolute, so that way I can get my brush back here and I can see where it is. You can see that tiny little speck off there in the distance. Didn't quite mean to move it out that far. Okay, so I've got some things here so we can have a little bit more perspective on moving around. So pressing and holding the right mouse button causes us to look. And then I can use the WASD keys, W-A-S-D, to maneuver in the space while I have my right mouse button held down. That's important. WASD keys will do different things if you don't have that right mouse button down. So I can use D for sidestep right, sidestep left for A, go back with S, forward with W, and then you can use these keys to fly around. You can also use Q to go straight down and E to go straight up if you need to just simply change your elevations. Now your orthographic is a little bit different. You can't fly in orthographic. Obviously, it doesn't make too much sense. This is a flat 2D projection. So all you can really do is press and hold the right mouse button and drag and move your scene around. Now you can use the mouse wheel to zoom out. So I can zoom out here to see what's going on. And I can see, oh, there's that brush. If I zoom like really far out, I should be able to eventually find, there it is. There's that, man, I really move that guy way the heck out there. And so on and so forth. By the way, the mouse wheel will also work in perspective mode. So if I come over here to my perspective window and use the mouse wheel, it will move me back and forth slowly on on my W and S plane. So if I'm pointing straight down and I use the mouse wheel, it's basically like using W and S, only it's a lot slower. Now, finding brushes. So like let's say, well, I've already shown one of those. I've got my builder brush here, and I'll have a video that talks about exactly what this guy does. So I've got this builder brush here. If I happen to lose the builder brush, like I showed earlier, so now I've just yanked it, who knows where. So if I just move it out, it's like I'm looking around. It's like, okay, well, I can kind of see it over there, but if I unselect it, it's like that's really kind of hard to find, that tiny little red speck. Yeah, now imagine that I actually had a skybox in here, and I'm not finding that little red speck. So in the event that you lose your builder brush, the easiest method to get it back is the one that I just showed a little bit ago, is you come up here to this translation mode, right-click on it, and bring up this box. And we can translate it to 000, and without relative checked, click Apply. Oops, and I got to make sure that I'm in the right window when I do that. So, translate 000, apply, and it's not working for some reason this time. Because I didn't have it highlighted. Yeah, you got to have the translation widget actually, the brush highlighted. And so how you can do that, if you can't see it, if you control left drag on the, well, pretty much any area, it will automatically select the builder brush. So it's unselected, I control left drag, I now have my builder brush selected. I can now come over here, translate 0 relative, and sure enough, now my builder brush is back over here. If you have the relative checked, by the way, that just simply moves the builder brush. So I've got my builder brush selected, right-click, and I will translate it 5x, apply, and you notice, it moved over. Oh, and I didn't apply it relative. Gosh. All right, let me check relative this time, and you can notice it slowly. Let me make that bigger, 50. And you notice now my brush is moving 50 units every time I click Apply. The other way of finding things, let's say I've got, well, I need to find where this, I've got a missing box here. So I've got this box, I've got this box. Here we go. I can see it from my top-down view. There it is. But let's just pretend for the moment that I did something silly. It's like way out here in the void, and I don't know where this is anymore. Well, if on our content, in our browser windows, if we go to, I'm sorry, not level, scene, the scene will have a list of everything that we have in here. We can also use this to click on and select things, And if I double click on it, I will zoom to that location. So by double clicking on brush 7, I zoomed to where brush 7 is, so I can see it now. And appropriately hit delete. Now I can double click on brush 4 and snap myself back to where brush 4 is. That is another way of being able to find where things are in your level. Now I want to point out something here. If we look at my perspective mode, we can see that I've been manipulating things quite a bit, and I've got this really weird effect where things don't seem to be updating themselves correctly. And that has to do with how UDK deals with building its geometry. And since this video has gone on pretty long enough, and we've covered the bare bone basics of just simply maneuvering and navigating in the levels, we will go ahead and talk about what a BSP is and why we're seeing this weird behavior of not seeing deleted things deleted and not seeing moved things moved on the next video. And so, until then.